Very good evening from the KTN News Election HQ. My name is Ben Kitili. Many thanks for staying with us. And this is the official election channel, Kenya's premier 24-hour news channel. And we continue with a post-election analysis of different events, developing story, and what else is happening. And of course, I am here with the post-election politics. And tonight we shall focus on a number of things. We shall speak about the parliament, and there has been lobbying for different positions on both levels of parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate. We'll talk about that. Some seats, sources say, are said to be retained by those who had them in the previous parliament. Others are up for grabs. We'll talk about some of the names that have been thrown about. We'll also talk about some of the big names that have lost in this 2017 election and what next for them. Some governors, sitting governors, did fall at the ballots. We'll take a look at what next for them. And of course, as we continue to discuss how the politics is shaping up across the country, we'll talk about the potential the power brokers across the regions in the country. My name is Ben Kitili. My guests are already here with me. Let's start with what's happening in those positions in Parliament, both houses. And our senior political affairs reporter, Chris Tairo, did take a look at those names that have been thrown about, even as Parliament prepares to be sworn in the next 2 weeks or so. Take a look.
With exactly 22 days before the deadline for the 12th Parliament to hold its first sitting, members of Parliament-elect have already started lobbying for various top positions in both the National Assembly and the Senate. Mr. Speaker! At stake are the positions of Speaker, Deputy Speaker, leaders of majority and minority, as well as their deputies. In the Senate, Speaker Ekwe Ethuro's seat has attracted at least 3 other candidates, with sources within Jubilee circles intimating to KTN News that he is set to be replaced for his perceived non-commitment in campaigning for President Kenyatta and the Jubilee Party in the polls. Those being fronted for the position include former Budalangi MP Ababu Namwamba, former CIC Chairman Charles Nyachae, and former INAP Koi MP Samuel Chepkonga. Those lobbying for Ababu and Nyachae argue that although they lost the seats they were vying for, they managed to deliver the president's vote in both Kisii County and the Western region.
And if the leadership was to be fair, was to look at the sharing of the positions that are available in the Senate on the proportion of representation by way of regions so that there is balance. That will be in consonance with the principle of regional representation as required by the Constitution of Kenya.
The position of Deputy Speaker in the Senate, which was left vacant by outgoing Murang'a Senator Kembi Gitura, has attracted 2 contenders. One is Murang'a Senator-elect Irongo Hang'ata and his Nakuru counterpart Susan Kihika, who served as the first Speaker of the Nakuru County Assembly.
I'm aware that my competitor comes from the Rift Valley, but also I do know that Rift Valley does have another slot. That is the slot of the Chief Whip currently being held by Murkomen. And therefore, if the Deputy Speaker seat goes back to the Rift Valley region, there will be some imbalance.
What is critical is that we must remain focused on the fact that whoever is assigned a duty, whoever is assigned a role to play in the National Assembly must be able to play that role well.
Still in the Senate, Majority Leader and Tharaka Nithi Senator-elect Professor Kithure Kindiki and his deputy Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen are poised to retain their seats.
The Merus have earned the position of the leader of majority. The indivisible minimum that we will be asking is for maintenance of the status quo because that position was reserved last time for the Merus, and the Merus have delivered for Jubilee.
In the National Assembly, Speaker Justin Muturi and Leader of Majority Eden Dwale are set to retain their positions, given the manner in which they have been holding brief for the Jubilee administration for the past 4.5 years. However, the position of Deputy Speaker, which was held by Bomet Governor-elect Joyce Laboso, is said to have been reserved for women legislators. In the opposition, Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula is likely to be retained as Senate Minority Leader, while his Siaya counterpart, James Orengo, will either deputize him or be considered for Senate Minority Whip, which was held by outgoing Machakos Senator Johnson Muthama.
Putting in check a government, oversighting a government just requires dedication and commitment on the part of members of parliament. It doesn't really depend on how many you are. You could even be 20 of you. And if you're committed, if you're determined, if you're focused, that role can be played very well. Yeah.
It's not about numbers, it's about quality. So we are confident that we are going to perform our functions in the assembly despite our sliding numbers.
Other positions that have attracted interest include the chairmanship of powerful committees like the Public Accounts Committee, Public Investment Committee, Security Committee, as well as the Defense Committee, and commissioners of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Given that Jubilee Party enjoys majority of support in both the National Assembly and the Senate, those will be lucky to be fronted by the party to fill those positions will most definitely carry the day. Chris Dairo, KTN News in Nairobi.
All right, let's put some perspective into those efforts by those elected, for those members of parliament and senators elect to lobby for those positions in both houses of parliament. My guests are already here with me, political commentators Javas Bigambo and Hesbon Owila, as well as Jubilee strategist Mutinda Kavemba. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me tonight. Let me start with you, Javas. Let's start with that Senate. I don't know if to call it the upper house. That has been a major bone of contention, whether it's indeed the upper house. But there seems to be much activity around that speaker position, with Ekwe Thuro said to be on his way out. How do you see that playing out?
Well, of course, we know that here we are looking at majoritarianism at play. And Jubilee, of course, intends to exercise that, and it's going to do that very, effectively. As a matter of fact, we know that going by the freshness of a couple of, or rather an impressive number of new senators, we are going to see an interplay of that, which is likely to get to have, former, speaker, President Speaker Ekwe Ethuro going out. Remember too that during the campaign, there are lots of other individuals who stood by the Jubilee Party, who did so much in terms of campaigning for them, etc. And at a time such as this, it's a question of the party reaching out to also reward those individuals who were meaningful for the party. So here, during such times when people are jostling for power and influence, especially in such an upper house, here we want to see Jubilee trying to demonstrate, and because they're going to get it, the majority, to demonstrate that they have got the material resources which helps them to win the majority of the seats, but also they want to use the human resources that they have. And here what we also want to see is, and when Jubilee is considering who is it, or among the individuals who are very competitive for the position of speaker, that beyond just a question of creating a balance on matters, communities, etc., you also want to see an individual who will be able to run the business of the house quite effectively for the benefit, not just of that house, but for the benefit of the entire nation.
There's something that Chris Iro did mention in his story. Do you think it will be a major factor, the fact that Ekwe Thuro was nowhere to be seen in the political campaigns? You
see, unfortunately, Speaker Ekwe Thuro forgot that when he was speaker, or when he's speaker of the Senate, he's handling matters political. He is a politician. When time for campaign comes, it's these politicians who, if you want to retain your seat, who will need to vote for you. He properly sat on his hands. He properly sat on the fence. And maybe he wanted to be a good boy, but politics does not need good boys. Politics is not a place for good boys, and that's why he may have to pay the higher price of now being edged out this time round.
Here's some of the names that have been, thrown about for that position of Senate Speaker. There's, of course, a Speaker, the current Speaker, that is Ekwe Ethuro. Then there is a former Member of Parliament for Budalangi, Babu Namwamba, who was aligned himself with the Jubilee Party for the last months of the campaigns prior to the 2017 elections. There's also Charles Nyachae, a former commissioner for the Commission on the Implementation of the Constitution, CIC, who did unsuccessfully run for Kisii Senate. There's Samuel Chepkonga, former member of parliament for Ainapkoi in the county of Nandi. Those are the names that have been thrown about to be to fill up that position of Speaker of the Senate. Mutinda, what is the party saying? What are some of the factors that maybe Jubilee will be looking at?
First, that list is very impressive. Those are personalities that are known to be competent, and I think they've got what it takes for that position. Regarding the issue of Ekwe, I want to agree with my co-panelist here that that might really not work for him, because he behaved well as a speaker who was neutral during the sessions of the House, but during the political season, he ought to have known that that was a different game altogether. And I think that might cost him much. So then you look at the Ainapkoi, that is in the Rift Valley, where we have the number 2, that is the deputy president. So most likely this will zero to Nyachae versus Ababu na Mwamba, and for obvious reasons. Their regions quite voted for Jubilee in a substantive manner, especially as compared to 2013. And these are people who took risks. And the statistics were not in their favor when they began, and they decided that was the route they took, and they've delivered. If we can say that, they've delivered. And Jubilee, as the way the voting took place, has confirmed that Jubilee is a truly national party, and it is in the interest of the leadership of the party to really make that real by bringing more faces in top positions from different corners of the Republic, so that going forward, then we have a cohesive party that has got substantive support from almost all corners of the country.
Hesbon, there's Samuel Chepkonga is apparently close to the powers that be. Charles Nyachae is said to have delivered on that Kisii vote. Ababu na Mwamba as well in Western. Who do you see as a front runner in this list?
I want to believe that it is likely to go to either Babu Namwamba or Charles Nyachae for obvious reasons. Just like Tinda's mentioned, they brought in votes. I think you may look at Kisii votes as votes that came in courtesy of so many people, the likes of Kibagendi. You may not squarely attribute it to Charles Nyachae, but they need to actually acknowledge the fact that they got votes in Kisii by rewarding a big name from that region. And I think Charles Nyachae is emerging as a big name. But unfortunately, I think if you look at the list of those 4 that are touted to be the front runners, I still go with Ekwe Othuro. He may not have performed politically after the session, but if you look at his experience and the fact that he was a very diligent speaker who never leaned towards any side, you'd still want to believe that if every other thing was considered in terms of qualifications, competence, and all that, it would still be Ekwe Othuro.
All right, let's go to other positions still in the Senate. And according to our sources, they seem to be intimating that a majority leader is Senator Kithure Kindiki and his deputy Kipchumba Murkomen are set to retain their positions. But there's this the position of Deputy Senate Speaker, which is up for grabs, apparently. Irungu Kangata, the Muranga Senator-elect, is said to be a frontrunner in that, as well as Susan Kiheka, another newcomer in the Senate, the Nakuru Senator-elect, who was, of course, the Speaker of the Nakuru National County Assembly. Javas, what is your take on the majority leader position? That is Kithure Kindiki's position and Murkomen's position, and then this deputy speaker position.
If you look at the game of numbers and how the arithmetic is likely to play out in the House, and then also consider the issue of balancing regions, etc., and then the gender aspect, then you'd realize that when it comes to the deputy speaker position, it may, the stars may be lined up for Senator-elect Kihika, because of the gender factor. And, remember last time, that really did not work out well to get to have, for example, a deputy speaker who is female,
yes,
who stood up for that position. Now, this time round, we may have, Senator-elect Kihika taking that up. Remember that she's just formerly the Speaker of the Nakuru County Assembly. So this time round, I think I may cast my lot easily with Kihika because of the gender factor especially, and then realize that given that Senator-elect Irungu Kang'ata comes from the Mount Kenya region, it may be a bit of in bad taste to have, say, the Speaker of the National Assembly coming from the other side. Then you get to have the Deputy Speaker again of the Senator coming from again the other side. So if Jubilee also wants to play their cards very well in terms of regional balance, then they may not easily give it to Senator-elect Irungu. When it comes to the majority, because of the numbers that Jubilee has in the Senate, then, and with the preference, of course, and not also facing major challenge of Ulster, then the status quo may remain.
Do you agree, Mutinda?
Yes, I do agree, because you see, Irungu Kang'ata, it's interesting, he seems to have decided to inherit it both in totality. You know, the Deputy Speaker also happens to have been the immediate former Senator for Murang'a, Kembi Gitura. Right. So I think for the reasons that my co-panelist here stated, Kihika will have an upper hand. I've heard Irungu Kang'ata try to bring forth the argument that Murkomen is from the Rift Valley and Susan Kihika is also from the Rift Valley. But there is the gender aspect that Javan has brought in, which also really matters. You know, you've heard the National Assembly is actually clear that they want to leave that now that the immediate former has been elected a governor. So I think in the same line and in trying to also bring gender balance in the House leadership, then Susan Kihika, and you know, like again, Javan has stated, she's the immediate former speaker for...
She has some experience.
Yes, so she's probably better prepared for the job. Now, when you get to the majority leader, most likely the incumbent will still retain because he won his seat and he performed well. He's been at the front line campaigning for Jubilee, so there would really be no reasons. I've even had his fellow senator-elect from his region already campaigning that they should retain that. Right. Then there is the issue of Murkomen, again, being the chief whip, is most likely going to retain that because he effectively played that role. So most of the incumbents who got re-elected, I think, are going to retain their positions, especially in Jubilee, now that they have the numbers.
Even as you respond to this issue, there are other unfilled positions still in that Senate, and that is both the majority whips in the Senate. Of course, that was Beatrice Elachi, former nominated senator, outgoing Beatrice Elachi, and the Nairobi senator, outgoing, that is the Nairobi governor-elect Mike Sonko. Those are two vacant positions. And also in the National Assembly, there's a deputy speaker, as you said, Mutinda, which was held by the Bomet governor-elect Joyce Laboso. And also some seats in those parliamentary committees, the Public Accounts Committee, which was held by Nicholas Gumbo. What do you see playing out, especially in the National Assembly?
I think there'll be a lot of jostling because of the cloud that comes with these positions. From the Jubilee side, I want to expect that they would fill the same positions with guys from the same regions where the previous occupants came from. Like you look at the deputy speaker, it's likely to go to the female gender again from the Rift Valley, if I'm not so wrong. So it's a question of looking for somebody who has experience, probably was in parliament and was part of the speaker's committee and, has done quite substantially well for the party and has the requisite qualifications. So it's basically a question of having the party look at regional balance, gender balance, reward loyalty, and of course competence.
All right. Javas, in the National Assembly, many of you seem to think that Aden Duale and Speaker Justin Muturi will retain their seats. What about the other side of the political divide? The minority whip, that was the Kitui West Member of Parliament, Nyanze, who seems to have fallen out with the wipe hierarchy. How do you see the opposition or the minority side playing it out?
Well, you see, the opposition needs to organize themselves very well. What at times political parties forget is that when you get to have somebody occupying such important positions in the House, they should be individuals who command the respect of their fellow members of the House, and an individual also who can drive the agenda of the party on the floor of the House whenever debates are there or pushing for various interests of the party. But much more than that, preparation for the next battle, which is the next election. But much more than that, in the wider interest of the party, it is to show up in the House. So when you look at, for example, Honorable Nyenze, there isn't much that one would celebrate him for the time that he was in that position in the past parliament. So here, the opposition may want to rethink what kind of individual, what kind of profile, influence that, should be picked to hold such kind of a position in the interests of the party and the wider interest of the country. The moment they miscalculate on that, and then you just get to have some drab fellow, some individual who does not know how to wiggle and wriggle, and then it doesn't work in the interest of the party. So I think right now it may be very important for the opposition to rethink about profiles of individuals who can be of greater influence and service to the party.
Hezron, do you see any names that can fill that position?
Yeah, well, I may not really settle down on a few names, but just like Jarvis has said, I think the opposition will have to take their time because for them, with the experience that they went through in the last parliament, having a few individuals poached by the government, they wouldn't want to focus more on regional balance and gender issues. They would look more at individuals who are loyal to the party, who have shown commitment. And for that reason, I want to believe that they'll settle on individuals who have served in parliament before. I don't think they'll take their chance with new guys. So you may want to look at folks like Ugunja MP-elect or Pio Wandai. You may want to look at guys who've been vocal, advancing the cause of the opposition, like Junet Mohammed, names that can speak loyalty, at the first mention. And I want to believe that it is in their own interest because the government will have so many goodies and it's easy to pick individuals who are vocal if they are not very loyal.
Yeah. Well, from where you sit, Mutinda, what do the minority side need?
First, it is clear that they are going to have new people because of some of the reasons you've stated to do with Nyenze. Nyenze has been re-elected, but he seemed to have been of divided loyalties towards the campaign, and I don't think they are going to trust him with such a position. His deputy, who actually in the last parliament was more effective than him, and you would have been excused to think that he's the minority leader, who is Jacoyo Midio, lost. So for the minority, both of those two positions have to be filled. And I want to agree with Esbon that there are individuals within the opposition who have the vibrancy and the experience that is probably needed for an opposition, because an opposition needs to have some mojo. And
some clouds.
The immediate former minority leader seemed not to really be very keen on that. And probably his past experience, he's someone who served in government, and his experience was in the ruling party, not in the opposition. And probably it was just for regional balancing that he was given that position, now that they were also keen on still maintaining their political outfit. And that is the point I want to now discuss, that some of the factors that they cannot wish away is that kind of balance, because again they are hoping to still be together going forward, and if they're not sensitive to each other's interests, then a fallout is likely, because this is now going to be their second term in the opposition, and it's not easy to remain together when in the opposition, and especially when we have a vibrant party as Jubilee in government that is not hiding that it's reaching out to ensure that it's even more national than it already is.
All right, let's leave it there in terms of that jostling for those positions in both houses of parliament. We'll take a quick commercial break here on the broadcast. When we return, we'll talk about some of the big poll losers and what next for them, including some sitting governors who lost at the ballot. Many thanks for staying with us here on the broadcast. Don't go too far. We are back shortly after this quick commercial break.